Just thought I'd share what I'm working on my Navara at the moment. Doing a Patrol turbo swap. So there's a couple reasons you want to do this. You can achieve a bit better boost control from the Patrol turbos using the right tools, and there's quite a few aftermarket options for Patrol turbos compared to Navaras. So on the left you got the Navara HT1219. That's a wastegated turbo, and on the right there you got the Patrol GT 2052, and that's a VVT or VGT turbo. You can see them side by side there. The compressor housing is quite similar, but the rear turbine housing or exhaust side is quite a different sizing. So on the right you got the Navara turbo with the wastegate or the flapper, and here's how the VGT of the Patrol turbo works. So you spin that ring and they open and close, controlling your boost. So I'm currently running a Mamba wastegate actuator from my Navara turbo. It's a positive pressure actuator or a boost, and I just had to shorten up the rod length. In future I'll move to a vacuum actuator, and I'll probably upgrade to a bigger or aftermarket Patrol turbo, which is part of the reason to moving to a Patrol turbo, is just because there's a larger aftermarket availability in turbos. Here's a little intake pipe that I made. It's nothing fancy, but I had to make something to go to my custom airbox. You just want to make sure that you clean up the inside edges. You don't want any of those bits of metal flying into your turbo and in through your engine. So just try and smooth it out as best you can, and hopefully nothing goes inside that's not meant to. Here's the oil line kit. I bought it off eBay. It's a Mamba oil hose feed and return kit. You got that silicone hose there is the drain hose, runs from the bottom of the turbo to the block. Here's your high pressure oil feed from the side of the block into the oil inlet. It's a little gift card you don't need. Here's the bag of little flanges and hose fittings. I'll supply the link at the end of the video so you guys can see exactly what it is. So that's the little turbo fitting. You got your high pressure and your return line. Here's a little hose fitting, goes in one of those ends. We'll figure that out later. And into the side of the block. And here's a little flange adapter that takes the 90-degree hose fitting and lets you bolt it onto the side of the block for your oil return. And a little banjo bolt. Don't lose the little copper washers, you will definitely regret it if you do. And that goes onto your high pressure line and then into the bottom of the turbo. So let's get this on the car. Got the turbo off. That's the little turbo fitting, little flange. That empty hole there is your banjo bolt fitting, and then down there is the flange to the block. That's your oil return. You just want to scrape off any old gaskets or any gunk that's stuck to it. You want a clean surface on both the turbo flange and the engine flange, oil return flange, sorry. Let's just give them a scrape and a wipe down. Here's your banjo bolt. You want a copper washer on either side of it so that it gets a good seal. And when you're fitting these, don't tighten the bolts up too tight. You want a little bit of movement so that you can adjust and move some hose around. So don't go nipping them up tight right after you put them in. Leave it till the end when you got all your hoses fitted and whatnot. And I'm going through the side of the wheel well here. If you've got a piece of rubber there, a rubber lining, pull it out. It's easier to go from the side than the top, I think. There's not enough room to really get your hand between the intake side of the turbo and the oil can there. So you can see that little banjo bolt in the fitting there. So this is the flange to the bottom of the turbo. I found it was easiest getting an extension on a ratchet and just trying to squeeze it up there, line it up as best you can, and just try and get one bolt in. Remember that there's a gasket on top. Make sure you use that gasket. So just tighten them up a little bit so that it holds itself in there. And you want to get your other bolt in there. Make sure the gasket's lined up properly. You can do these bolts up tight because you don't need any movement in this fitting. Just make sure that you don't strip the bolts, and you want to make sure it's the right way around. I'll show you what it should look like on the bottom of the turbo from a different angle, just so you can see the two fittings. So you want the drain pipe closest to the engine, and the high pressure inlet towards the passenger side of the vehicle, or the outer side of the vehicle. Don't get those mixed up, it'll cause you big problems. So now we're putting on the high pressure line. Put it on that banjo. Really important that you got a bit of movement in that fitting so that you can swing it around to where it sits most comfortably. You don't want this line rubbing or vibrating or anything, so just make sure it's not touching anything. And you just want to get him to take that line. Don't cross thread, make sure you don't. And there, that's what it should look like. And just let it sit wherever it wants to. So now that he's in, we're going to move down to the block and drain fitting. You got that gasket there. I found it was easiest to just put one bolt through the flange and the gasket, hold them together, and put one bolt in. Just get him started, get him in so he's not too tight. He's still got a bit of movement. Put your other bolt in, line it up with the gasket. Once again, make sure your gasket's on right. Don't mess up your gaskets. Swing him around, tighten him up. And this fella you can tighten up, he doesn't need any movement either. It's more the hose fittings that you want to leave a bit of slack in, a little bit of play so that you can adjust them to where they're comfortable. Here's the hose fitting, a little 90-degree bend. Put him on there, leave a little bit of play, and then spin him around upright so he's facing towards the turbo drain. See that there? That's what it should look like. Here's the silicone hose, the return line. We're going to cut it a little bit short because this kit is made for a Patrol, not a Navara. I just bought it because all the lines are flexible and you can cut the silicone hose to suit. So we're just going to cut him there a little bit shorter. I found when you cut the straight, you can't use it, it kinks. The bend is too tight and the hose collapses on itself, which is no good. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back, cut that a bit shorter and use the corner piece. So that little elbow on the left is what you want to use. When you're fitting these silicone hoses, use a bit of lube, a little bit of WD or something, just spray up on the inside so that they slide on the fittings a bit easier, and you can push them on to where they want to sit. You want to make sure that that hose clamp is between the two barbs, and that way it can get a good seal and be pinned between the two barbs by the hose clamp and won't be falling off anytime soon. So now we've got all our hoses on, we can tighten up our fittings. Nothing needs to move anymore. Just nip him up. Go through, double check all your bolts, all your fittings, make sure nothing is loose, otherwise you'll get a leak. And then we start it up. Now, I would say it sounds like something out of the Jetsons, but I'm not that old, so you just want to let it run for a bit, let some pressure run through the lines and then go back and double check. Make sure there's no leaks or anything. Of course with high pressure you want everything to be done up tight or else it will find a way to leak. And then do the old key flick and get a little bit of turbo flutter. Most important part of a turbo is to make it sound good, I reckon. And here's the Mamba kit that I got off of eBay. It was 160 bucks, turned up within a couple of days. Comes with everything that you need to do this conversion, oil wise. Not sure what everyone will need to do with dump pipe and intake pipe, as I've got custom exhaust and custom intake, so I'll just make that up to suit my car. I'll be making a stainless exhaust dump pipe and a stainless intake, or use a silicone hose adapter to go from my turbo inlet to the airbox. And just remember that this is using a oil-cooled Patrol turbo. There is also a water-cooled option, so if you go that way you'll have to plumb that up too. So thanks for watching, and I hope this helps anyone considering doing the conversion themselves. Feel free to leave any questions in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. Cheers.